But Johnny, let's end the podcast looking at some Spider-Man news. And kind of some news at the end, but then kind of we're going to start by just kind of being us and seeing what we would like and coming up with ideas. So this was about a week or two ago, maybe last week, on the Discussing Film podcast. The writer, I believe he's just the writer, Richard Wenk. Yeah, the writer of the Kraven movie that's going to be coming out sooner rather than later. He had an interesting quote here about the Kraven movie, and it says, "It's an interesting world, a great character. It's in the Spider-Man universe. I'm going to adhere very closely to the lore of Kraven the Hunter, and he's going to come face to face with Spider-Man. I think that's where we're all circling, is that this is Kraven's last hunt. And whether this is the predecessor to that movie, whether it will include it, we're talking about those things. And even the idea that maybe Kraven could be like Kill Bill, basically a 2-part movie. It's all in the mix." And that's the end quote. Now, he references Kraven's Last Hunt, which is a comic story from the Spider-Man comics, which I'm just going to read the synopsis before we all get into it so everyone's got it in case you haven't read it. So here's the synopsis. Kraven hunts down Spider-Man, defeats him, and seemingly shoots him dead. Kraven then bruises him and, donning a copy of Spider-Man's costume, seeks to prove himself superior at his adversary's former activities. He roams New York, brutally attacking criminals. The culmination of these activities is Kraven's successful unarmed capture of Vermin, whom Spider-Man needed the help of Captain America to defeat. After 2 weeks, Spider-Man revives from the effects of the trank dart that Kraven shot him with and digs his way out of the grave. When Spider-Man confronts Kraven, the hunter does not fight back, considering himself the victor and his final point made. Kraven then releases Vermin, who attacks Spider-Man, thinking him to be the one who so brutally beat him before. Vermin is able to defeat Spider-Man, but Kraven intervenes before Vermin can kill him. He allows Vermin to go free and tells Spider-Man he can pursue him if he desires, but that Kraven's hunting days have ended. While Spider-Man goes after Vermin, Kraven retires to his home, reminiscing about his past and the peace he now feels, and commits suicide with a rifle. He leaves a confession of his burying and impersonating Spider-Man for the police to find, complete with photographic proof. Spider-Man catches up with Vermin and lures him above the ground, where sensory overload renders him helpless. He turns Vermin over to the police and goes home to his wife. So that's the storyline they're going to use. It probably won't be the exact same thing. It never is. But Johnny, what I want to ask you, loaded question with especially that ending, what do you want to see from the Kraven the Hunter movie, knowing what storyline they're going to go with and me just reading that storyline for the podcast?
I'm trying to think how to go about this because that was
they're not going to kill Kraven.
I didn't think so. It was really weird. Well, they might kill Kraven, but not in the way they did in the comic.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's his last hunt.
I'm like, what? You read that? I'm like, I didn't know how to take that. I'm like, what?
Sensory overload for Johnny over there.
Well, a little bit.
Didn't know how to feel. Should he cry? Should he?
Because I'm like, wait. So his final hunt, and it's like, oh, it's all done now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you think about it in the comic, he had thought, hey, I had killed Spider-Man. I'm the victor. And then he didn't. So it's like, hey, you know what? This was my last hunt. I'm going to go out. I was not victorious and probably played into it. They're not going to do that in the movie.
No,
though.
Absolutely not.
How would you want, if you were writing this movie, what would you do knowing that, all right, we're going to have, because the writer said with Spider-Man, so we know Spider-Man's going to be in it or could be in it, we'll say. You could put Spider-Man in it. You know they're going to use Raven's Last Hunt or Kraven's Last Hunt. What would you do? What would be your kind of pitch for the movie?
This is gonna be a weird one because you also gotta throw in a sort of origin story for Kraven. So do sort of like Vulture.
Well, that's why he's saying. I think that's why he's like, oh, it could be a 2-parter.
Well, if let's just say we're doing a 1-parter for now. I'm not gonna do the 2-parter. The 1-parter would be sort of do a Vulture intro story where it's like just generally, hey, this gives you an idea who Kraven is.
Yeah,
and then put the like little hint of this is like. He just hunted one of the hardest games he could hunt. Like anyone could be hunting. And done with ease. And then like show like some form of like Spider-Man as like a poster on the wall or a paper article he picks up off the ground. Something like that. And make that like his introduction of like this. This is my final game. This is the one thing that if I can catch it, I can catch anything.
Yeah.
That would be his motive. And then you cut over to like Spider-Man New York, fighting some villain, some either thugs or even maybe like a second tier villain, maybe Rhino, Scorpion, whatever you want to throw in there. I'm not saying those guys specifically, but like, because they're kind of higher tier. Wait, is this... Before I keep going with this, is this Sony or is this...
This is Sony.
Okay, this is Sony. Spider-Man might be a hit or miss. If we can, let's say we can get Spider-Man then. I want to throw that one in there.
I'm saying because the writer said with Spider-Man, assume you can use Spider-Man.
That's what I want to make sure I reiterate because I'm like, wait, really, I forgot. Can we use...
Because really it's Sony. So if they want to, they could use him in this Kraven movie. That's what I'm thinking with it. So if you want to use Spider-Man,
we'll use Spider-Man. Okay. So we cut to Spider-Man doing his thing in New York. Probably like 10 minutes in. Something freaks out. What the hell was that type thing? Introduction to Kraven's finally there. I'm coming to hunt you down, Spider-Man. Nice like 20-minute interaction with that. And then finally Kraven... like up to Spider-Man, and you just black out the screen, go to Kraven pretending he's Spider-Man.
Yeah. And you can get the whole Kraven Spider-Man thing before in the third act Spider-Man comes back.
Exactly.
And then has to beat Kraven.
And then we'll kind of Marvel Disney alter the end of it. Because, it's Sony, so they don't have to. They don't have to go. They're probably not going to go as dark as what the comic book did. But they'll make it and then maybe introduce Vermin even if they want to. Maybe
or
not.
Do they? And here's a question I'll ask you, because they haven't introduced Vermin. Do they just replace Vermin with like a Venom? Because Venom in their Spider-Verse is established. They have now established Venom in the universe.
Could be.
Because that was originally, before we got this quote, originally what I was seeing was, oh, if they're not going to use Spider-Man, they could just have Kraven hunt Eddie Brock,
which would be
hunt Venom,
which would be almost as entertaining, if not more, to the fact of Venom is fairly ruthless too. So if you can somehow get him to somewhat defeat Venom,
and this depends on how many. Like, will this be after Venom 2, before Venom 2?
Yeah, that all depends on what.
If it's before Venom 2, no, I want to see Venom fight Carnage and that whole storyline before I get a Venom Kraven thing. The origin for Kraven, I don't think is a huge... It's not a big, like, oh no, what are we going to do?
No, that's why I say give him like like they did with Vulture and Spider-Man.
Yeah, which...
A few minutes of like, hey, this is establishing who he is kind of is.
You know what you do? Here's how you do it. Just like kind of similar to Vulture and Tony Stark, where let's say Kraven or Sergey is a big game hunter in Africa. Well, who starts cracking down on hunting and politics get in the way? Wakanda. So basically, Black Panther, T'Challa, maybe with his policy, not really with the Black Panther mantle, with the whole kind of policy. I know this is MCU thing, but I think what Sony could do if they wanted to...
Ask to at least borrow...
Hey, can we reference? We don't need to see Black Panther.
Can we reference T'Challa? Not even Black Panther. Can we reference T'Challa?
Exactly. Basically saying that like his policy in Africa, because now Wakanda after Black Panther 2, and this is another thing too of are they in the same, like, is Sony going to borrow Universi from, that's not even the right word, universes, from the MCU, but like I know in the MCU, Black Panther basically opened up Wakanda to the world.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's why it would make sense for, hey, can we borrow and just reference T'Challa in a policy that basically puts an end to big game hunting?
Yeah.
And forces Kraven to retire. And instead of going to Russia, maybe he finds himself, like, the whole thing is,
I got one.
How is he going to find himself in New York? Go ahead.
I got one that combines both of ours. Mm-hmm. So think of the big game hunting clubs where it's like they go to a bar or something.
Yes.
And you see Kraven. He's huge. He's super strong because of his powers. Mm-hmm. He's just carrying in like a lion or something with one arm. Comes in, just like drops it on a table. And walks up
in Africa?
In Africa. Okay. Walks up to the bar and kind of gets sort of reprimanded from the bartender. It's like, hey, you can't be doing that anymore. Did you just hear the policy that T'Challa has instated? And tells him about it. And as he's sitting at the bar, he goes, looks down at the paper and goes, well, that won't be a problem now, will it? Sees that, like, the Spider-Man headline.
My whole question is, how do you get him? Like, is that how you get him from Africa to New York? It's just that simple?
I think it could be because he's looking for the next big game. That's what's going on. It's not
exactly. Or, let me put this in, because Sony is different than Disney MCU.
Yeah.
The T'Challa policy ends his big game hunting.
Yeah. Maybe
you show a little bit of like depression in there, where he's not hunting, he's just at the bar, depressed.
Could be
that he cannot like hunt anymore, or else he'll get killed or something.
He'll be
executed, basically
incarcerated. However,
and then sees on the TV, because with Far From Home, with them going to Europe, Spider-Man could become more
global known.
And he could see that and just go, "That's my next hunt. I am going to kill Spider-Man." And then boom, there you're off to the races at that point. Gives him a motive to get to New York. Peter would already be in New York. So that would then and then the whole thing wrapped up in it as well is I would still do the shot for shot from like Kraven's Last Hunt, which is basically, hey, you know what? He shoots Spider-Man, kills Spider-Man, which would, all of us would be like, no, not again. No, first the snapshot, now this. And basically him becoming Spider-Man. So we see that ruthlessness in him just killing. Because we've already seen from the Venom movie what Sony wants to do with these.
Yes.
And
he wants to make them as ruthless as they're supposed to be.
They can show the ruthlessness, kind of like how they did with Venom in a way. Like they don't have to show blood splatter on the screen, but they can get the point across that, hey, he's brutally just murdering these criminals as Spider-Man.
And you can even have like, just to show that it's Kraven, if they don't want to show the actual like bloodshed and stuff like that, like they didn't necessarily in Venom, make it like a J. Jonah Jameson art like headliner on a TV somewhere. This is Spider-Man's new policy, huh? Killing off villains instead of incarcerating them. He's a villain, I tell you.
Now,
shit like that.
Here's another thing.
I'm not saying that's specific, but
here's another thing I'm looking into, and I want to ask you this just to be a what if. Let's say they did make it a 2-part.
Okay.
What if the first part was what we were talking about? Kraven, Last Hunt, going after Spider-Man. He doesn't kill Spider-Man. Spider-Man eludes him. So at the end of the movie, kind of like what we see in the comics, not in Kraven's Last Hunt, but in the comics in general, where he basically teams up with the Sinister Six. We already have a Vulture. We'll have Mysterio. We already have an Electro. Well, no, we had a Shocker, but we could easily fix the Sinister Six. We have a Vulture. We have a Mysterio. We have a Scorpion. If they like, and the question is, the third Spider-Man movie, would this take the place of like, hey, since Spider-Man's in it, this is going to be the third Spider-Man movie? Or what if we get another third Spider-Man movie solo film and they introduce like a Doc Ock or they introduce like an Electro in there? I would assume Doc Ock, Green Goblin would be what they go to, but what if they did that?
Well, you said a two-parter. What if we kind of Infinity War end it? And like I said before, bam, black screen for the first
and we
the
don't
first
know
one.
what happened.
And we don't know what happened. Second one starts off with a brutal Spider-Man. Like, wait, what's going on with the Spider-Man movie? Slowly introduced to it being Kraven. If they want, let's just say they want to make it a two-part. Make that second one all about Kraven being a brutal, like
the first act is him as Spider-Man.
Him as Spider-Man. We're like, wait, we thought Spider-Man got shot. And then, like, it's like we see him doing the Spider-Man thing, but then all of a sudden, like, kills a villain. Go ahead.
We're going act by act here of both movies.
Okay.
Act 1 of the first movie, introducing Kraven as the big game hunter, establishing Wakanda policy, and then his descent into not being a big game hunter anymore.
Depression, and then finish the act
the
by...
end of the act is him being like, I'm going to go
TV
after
screen,
Spider-Man.
see Spider-Man, realization of the new game.
The second act is him being in New York, figuring out how he's going to do it. Maybe we see like one little interaction with Spider-Man.
Him stalking Spider-Man for a while first.
Yes, exactly. But maybe at the end, that like a short interaction. The whole third act is the final chase, per se.
Yeah.
And the final fight between him and Spider-Man before what you say, black screen. And we don't see, as I did that, my computer screen went black, by the way.
You killed it.
Basically, then Act 1 of the second movie picks up with Brutal Kraven being Spider-Man.
Brutal Spider-Man.
Brutal Spider-Man.
Being Kraven.
The second act is Spider-Man comes back from the dead, defeats Kraven, and then the end of the second act into the third act. Well, second act part 2, or part 2, would basically be, all right, I have been beaten. Instead of Kraven's last hunt, where he goes into a depression and kills himself, basically what happens is...
He's approached by the Sinister Six.
No, not approached. Oh. He, in his head, thinks, instead of because in the comic it was, all right, Spider-Man, you have won. You have bested me. But maybe in the Sony universe, it's more of a like, no, I have never been beaten.
This isn't over.
This is not over. I refuse to lose. And that's where he contacts the Sinister Six. And teams up and needs them for his help.
I'm going to alter yours just a little bit.
Or if Doc Ock contacts him like, hey, we want Spider-Man gone. You want to kill him. We can help you.
I'm going to alter yours just slightly.
And then the last act would be Sinister Six with Kraven taking on Spider-Man.
I'm going to alter yours a little bit. So everything up till the first act of the second movie, we're going to leave alone. Second act is Spider-Man coming back from the dead slowly.
Is the end of the... Okay,
Let me finish.
Beginning of the second act is him coming out of the grave. Okay.
Yeah, beginning of the second act, his coming out. Well, actually, legit, that would be a cool scene, too. Him crawling his way out of the grave.
Like, just
you see
hands.
Like, you see, like, a little bit of, like, rustling of dirt, and all of a sudden, Spider hand comes up.
Yeah.
And just pulls himself out. Like, the whole, like, oh, shit, what's going on? And then him, like, coming back to, like, obviously, you gotta give it at least, like, 10 minutes of him to come back to what the hell is going on. And then him again, his like trying to get back into being Spider-Man, and then make the third act the final, like, between the two of them. The Kraven, first off, pissed that he didn't actually kill Spider-Man. Secondly, no, I'm Spider-Man. Boom, done. And then, like, obviously there's gonna be like, okay, Kraven's defeated. Spider-Man's gonna have to deal with the backlash of the brutal Spider-Man, and then cut after credits scene, because we have those in Marvel and Marvel affiliated movies. Him being approached by, like, him again back to, like, sort of, I don't want to say depression, but like his what's the word where you're like obsession. He's obsessed with Spider-Man now. Yeah. He's going to kill Spider-Man. This is the game that I need to finish. Approached by a Doc Ock or Vulture even, because he's sort of a planning guy that we have,
Yeah.
or even Mysterio, one of those type of guys that are like a planner, and come up to him and say, I really like what you do with Spider-Man. How would you like to work with us and actually get your game?
See, and that's the tricky part of it.
And then you set up for a Sinister Six movie.
Yes, and by the way, you mentioned Mysterio.
Yeah.
And what popped into my head really quick was, I believe from the filming in Prague, I believe, and I can't find them online. There are set photos that people have leaked of Jake Gyllenhaal in the Mysterio suit.
Oh, that's cool.
Like,
I'd like to see
no
that.
dome, just his head.
Everything
exposed.
else, yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to see that. That'd be cool.
There's him in the, because I have one right here. He's got the traditional green suit with the gold, like, right here, and then he's got the cape on, which I'll show you after we're done recording. I'm going to make a part 2. Maybe this is a different way to do it.
Okay.
So movie 1, act 1, same thing. Kraven, big game hunter, can't big game hunt anymore. Number 2, he stalks Spider-Man, he fights Spider-Man, he kills Spider-Man. End of act 2 is him killing Spider-Man. To where then the act 3 of that movie is him becoming the brutal Spider-Man. But then at the very end of the movie, Peter Parker breaks out of the trank gun, comes after him, and the end of the movie is Peter Parker beating him.
So you made this all one movie.
Just wait.
Okay.
The end of then movie 1, the post-credit scene, is Kraven sitting there in his den. It is sitting... I know they're not going to do this, but this is just my mind coming up with it. He's sitting in his den. He's looking at all the stuff on the walls, and there's one empty plate. Underneath says Spider-Man. All you see is goes to put the gun in his mouth, and you hear, I wouldn't do that so fast, my friend. He turns around. Dr. Octavius is there. Basically to, boom, cut screen. They're going to team up. And then the second movie is him and, depending on if they've put together the Sinister Six, because as of right now, there's no Sinister Six.
No.
Basically, at that moment, the second movie then would be Doc Ock. Kraven would be the first one he recruits. Doc Ock and Kraven recruiting the rest of the Sinister Six to go after Spider-Man. And the second movie could be a Sinister Six v Spider-Man movie.
Yeah, that
and
could work too.
Kraven gets his help. Like,
that
that's
could work
another
too.
thing
Yeah.
that I thought
if you
in my head.
So you split it down to one movie again.
Yeah, well, the second movie then would be, the first act would be them recruiting the Sinister Six, a la Kill Bill. Like Kill Bill, she would go and kill 1, 2, and then the next one was 3, 4, 5. This first act would be them individually recruiting the Sinister Six while Peter Parker does his thing. The second, third act would be them engaging with Spider-Man, and Spider-Man maybe losing to them in the second act, but barely escaping with his life. And when they come after him again, Peter Parker has learned what he needed to defeat them and Kraven in the end.
Yeah. No,
I don't know if I like that better than the first one.
So instead you're making it a Kraven movie and a Sinister Six movie.
That's what I'm doing.
Okay, yeah. That works too.
That's another thing that you could put into it. Here's the last thing I want to ask you, though, and this is kind of pushing Kraven to the side. Far From Home. We got some Far From Home news just to kind of mention really quick.
Yeah.
2 suit details, which, first off, everyone was freaking out about the black Spider-Man suit. All the Prague photos, people are like, oh my God, are we getting venomous Spider-Man? Are we getting symbiote Spider-Man? No, we're not. First, people thought it was then people are like, oh my God, we're getting Spider-Man Noir. We're getting the Noir suit. No, we're not. Basically, what we're getting is a SHIELD issue suit for Prague. And then in the clip, there was a clip this week of them filming in New York. Basically what happened, they ended in Prague. Tom Holland did his thing where he's like, hey, thanks for everything. It was great. All the people here watching us film. It was awesome. And while Mark Ruffalo was doing all that spoiler stuff,
Yeah.
they were supposed to go to New York to finish Spider-Man. But instead, Tom Holland got on a separate plane and took a little detour to Atlanta so that he could do reshoots for Avengers.
Oh.
Then he went to New York to finish the Spider-Man stuff. And this week, they filmed, it was easy. It was a simple thing. Zendaya, Spider-Man, they talk. Zendaya puts her legs around Spider-Man. They leap up into the air, and then they land. But what people are freaking out about is the suit. It looks more red and black. I want to ask you your thoughts. Are they changing the suit, or is this just something where it's like Captain Marvel style, where it's like, hey, before we add all this CGI stuff, this is what it looks like off CGI.
They're going to probably add some CGI stuff, but I wonder if it is a S.H.I.E.L.D. issue.
Mm-hmm. Or this one could be, like many people are saying, oh my God, it's the spectacular Spider-Man suit.
Maybe, but I almost feel like it's like you stated earlier. It's sort of a Shield issue because it's weird that it's the black because it still would be blue, wouldn't it?
No, I'm talking about the one from New York. So there's two.
Yeah,
the Shield issue one is the all black one.
Okay,
that he's gonna wear in Prague, and even up here there's a logo, Shield logo, which to me makes sense. I heard this was Charlie, his channel's Emergency Awesome, great channel, where I get a lot of my kind of information from because he does a great job with it. He kind of made a great point of it would kind of make sense that Tom Holland Spider-Man talking to Nick Fury, it would make sense that they would give him a S.H.I.E.L.D. issue suit for Europe because they wouldn't want enemies to put two and two together. Like, oh, Peter Parker went to Europe. Spider-Man is also in Europe. Like figuring out who, for someone to easily figure out who Spider-Man is and give him the S.H.I.E.L.D. issue suit. So it's like, oh, is this the same Spider-Man? Is this a different Spider-Man? What's going on here? Kind of a thing. And then when he's in New York, he's got the red, but it looks more black.
Yeah.
So that's why people are like, oh my God, it's a spectacular Spider-Man, where it may not even be that.
Yeah. That's a curious one on the red and black because it looks kind of weird too. To be honest, to me at least.
Here's what I think.
Yeah,
I think it's just them saying, "Hey, you know what? This is us going more towards because if you think about the original Spider-Man comics, it was originally supposed to be red and black.
True,
but then like whoever I can't remember his name
when you do shadowing,
the guy who drew Spider-Man, he would add in some blue." Kind of like light reflection off of the suit and stuff.
People thought it was blue.
And then eventually it just became red and blue.
Yeah.
And that's what it was. Maybe this is them going more towards that and away from the Stark Tech suit that Peter had, because maybe Peter's like, hey, I got to make this my own. I want to make this my own kind of suit. I don't want this to be, because he's not going to have the Iron Spider suit. He's probably going to not use that. That's probably going to be just an Avenger suit.
Yeah, when he's actually doing Avengers things.
So, I mean, we've got some of that, too, where I wanted to mention the two new suits and everything that was in it. Do you like the two suits, though?
I don't think I saw the S.H.I.E.L.D. one yet, but like I said, I think the red and black is a little weird right now, but maybe if we see some more pictures or even get like some video footage of it.
Maybe we get that first trailer. Because like the Captain Marvel trailer came out and no one freaked out about the suit.
Exactly.
No one freaked out about it. But this is where you guys come in. Let us know what you guys think down below in the comment section about a Kraven the Last Hunter movie. Also, what you think about the spider suits. Camera, we went a little long. This was kind of a longer segment for us, so you're looking at our logo here at the end. Everyone is audio, but make sure to check out patreon.com/mostvaluable-podcast to help support us and make sure we can keep doing this for you guys. Make sure to get yourself an MVP t-shirt so you can rep MVP. That's down below in the description. You can also get it at mostvaluablepodcast.com where you can get your MVP every day. And please make sure to go to Apple Podcasts and iTunes. Give the podcast, the Rick and Johnny podcast, and all MVP podcasts, a 5-star rating and let us know why you like listening to the show each and every week. But that is going to do it for Johnny and myself. We will be back next week talking Titans episode 2 for sure and have another jam-packed show for you guys. But as always, have a good day, everybody.